Every glass of water that comes out of a tap in Hillsboro meets state and federal standards for water quality. And it's true for showers, hand washing, and food preparation too. It's the mission of the City of Hillsboro's Water Department to provide community members with continued access to safe drinking water while protecting public health. And it's community members who advise Hillsboro Water's leadership and the Hillsboro Utilities Commission on setting the water rates for all of us customers. Hi, I'm Steve Callaway, Hillsboro Mayor, and welcome to this month's edition of Community Conversation. Today we're talking about Hillsboro's water rates, how they're set, and how Hillsboro's residents' voices are a part of the process and impacting the decision making. So joining us today for our discussion here at the Hillsboro Water Operations Facility is Water Department Director Niki Iverson. We have Dave Judah, Hillsboro resident and water customer, who is the chair of the Utilities Commission, and Jim Yent, who's a member of the Community Advisory Panel, also a Hillsboro resident and water customer. Thank you all for being here with me today. Everybody knows the importance of water in our lives each day, even if we take it for granted. And so, yet when we get our utility bill each month and we see that $50 bill for 6,000 gallons of water used at home during the month, it does get our attention. And so let's start by making it clear, Niki, who in Hillsboro oversees and sets the water rates, and when does that take place?
Yes, the Hillsboro Utilities Commission oversees our rate setting process for the drinking water portion of the utility bill. The Utilities Commission was formed by Hillsboro City Charter, and it's made up of 3 community members that live within our service area and are our customers.
And how many customer categories are there?
There's 8 customer categories. We also have a customer category for fire meters as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so those are residential, and those are large commercial or large businesses, factories. So there's 8 different water rates.
Yeah, there's different water rates within each category as well. We have single family, multifamily, commercial, public entities, nonprofit, small industrial, large industrial, and I'm missing one. I'm missing one of the categories, but they all have different rate setting with them.
I'm impressed that you pulled 7.
Irrigation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Well, Dave, that's why you're on the Utilities Commission in the chair, because you've got all 8 of those. So thank you. And, so how much direction do you receive in the rate setting process?
The Utilities Commission doesn't receive any specific direction from the Hillsboro City Council or other areas. We certainly get feedback from our customers, which we encourage, and we get the information for the rate setting process by our history, our data that we have for all these categories that you just talked about. And every 5 years, we have a rate study that goes in and reviews if our usage has been what we expected it to, and that each of those categories is paying for their share of the usage of the water.
So you're an independent, commission receiving input, and all 3 of you members do live in Hillsboro and are water customers. So it impacts and affects you, the work that you do. So you have some skin in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so then some of the input that you get comes from the Citizens Advisory Panel. And Jim, you're a member of that. And how important do you think it is for Hillsboro community members like yourself to be a part of the engagement process in setting rates?
I think it's very important from the standpoint that, as a citizen since the 80s, watching the water rates fluctuate and also seeing the growth that is occurring here. We wanted to be able to, in that committee, we wanted to be able to share our concerns. We had a lot of questions about how we base rates, a lot of concerns about with the upcoming growth, the industrial growth. We wanted to make sure that our water rates weren't going to double and because of that growth, and also the population itself. I felt it was important for me to give my feedback.
Very good. So Niki, the water department staff gives input, to the Utilities Commission. And what are the kinds of information that you give to them?
Yeah, we start the process with completing a water system master plan. So that tells us what infrastructure we need to replace, pipelines, meters, if we need to build more finished water tanks for emergency storage and fire flows. We take all of that information and the usage data from our customers, and that goes into our rate study, which is essentially a cost of service study that includes what we need to do and build over time, and then how the customers use the water. And that way we're able to make adjustments for each customer category, so they're not subsidizing other customer categories through the process.
And so basically to say that it's, what does it cost to provide that service? So when the Utilities Commission sets the rates, you don't just look at one city or another jurisdiction and say, oh, ours are lower, so we can just raise them by comparison. It all comes back to that study.
That's correct. That is the baseline that we go from there. As we've said a couple of times, we have many different kinds of customers, and that looks at those different kinds of customers and their specific needs for the usage of our system.
So with the Community Advisory Panel, which started relatively recently, then how does this also enter into that rate setting process?
Yeah, so we started the Community Advisory Panel in early 2024. We did a much more extensive outreach process to get many diverse members of our community on the panel. We wanted to hear from different lived experiences, different types of customers that are using water. And then we took information, we explained to them how we set rates. It's based on industry standards. And we also hire a consultant to put all that data that we have into a study. They run an extensive rate model. And so we had a lot of back and forth over 5 meetings with the Community Advisory Panel. They asked questions. We had to go back and do some analysis and come back and answer those questions. And then it's a complex process. So we had about 5 meetings over the spring to really go through the information and then get recommendations from the panel on adjustments we should make to our rate structure going forward.
And so let's dig in a little bit more on the Community Advisory Panel. How many people are on it? And, and describe a little bit more the makeup of this group of people.
Yeah, we had over 58 people apply, which was the highest number of applications we've received. And then they all put in applications. We selected 12 members from different parts of our community. It was focused on residential rates, so single family and multifamily. We had renters, we had condo owners, we had single family homeowners. We had quite a mix of community members. We had people that are retired citizens on fixed incomes. We had single parents that are looking to, that may have different costs that they're trying to handle within their family. It was really a good, diverse set of voices that we had on her.
And Jim, you've lived in Hillsboro since the 80s. And so obviously then we also have the other end where we have some relatively new residents on the panel. But what made you decide to apply for this? And what were you hoping would happen?
I think for me, it was just to understand how, overall how we base our rates and what are we doing for the low income folks, as well as, the industrial growth that, we're seeing and hearing. How are we basing our rates? The one thing that was beneficial for me was the amount of data that was provided. Decisions are not based on, someone's opinion. It's based on data. And it was really good to hear that. It was really good to hear that the fact that our rates are the lowest and one of the lowest in the whole metro area.
And were there any other surprises that you learned in the process?
I think the best things for me was to hear about that we do have a plan for low income and the people that can't pay their bills and how we go about helping them, and the fact of having emergency whenever we have a potential earthquake that may disrupt the water source in one area, may not necessarily affect other areas. Also that we can help other cities as well as other cities can help us if we run out of water. That we have multiple resources for water, especially this upcoming Willamette project that we're doing. I was always concerned about all the growth and, how we're going to keep our rates, again, the lowest in the metro area. So it was actually very interesting to learn all that information.
So, Niki, when the community advisory panel looks at the bill, do they give input on, the other things that are on the bill? Because sometimes when we, get it in the mail, we just call it the water bill. But there's a lot of different pieces to that bill. And so does the community advisory panel have any input over clean water services or the transportation utility fee or other things that appear on that bill?
No, they didn't. We focused primarily on the drinking water portion of the bill. That's something that we're communicating to our customers frequently, as there's a lot of confusion and people call it the water bill, but it's more of a utility bill with sewer services, stormwater, transportation utility fees. But this community advisory panel focused solely on the drinking water portion of that.
Very good. And in fact, the clean water services is set by the county. And so we don't have any input, in that, any formal input as a governing authority. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. They notify us of that, but the Washington County Board oversees clean water services.
So, Dave, was there any recommendations you heard from the advisory panel that resonated with you or just stuck with you maybe in a new way?
The advisory panel, I had the good fortune of attending some of those meetings, and they were focused on water conservation a lot, as well as making sure we take care of our low-income people. And I was really glad that came out of there. As Jim had indicated, not only personally did he have those issues that he wanted to make sure got addressed, but most of the panel did. The results of their efforts came through with suggestions that supported those, including adding another lower tier to the rate for the low water users, as well as looking at multifamily issues and some of those other things that we're going to be implementing with the new rates this year. So it encourages conservation as well as helps us continue the water department as it needs to, as Niki discussed earlier, to accomplish all those items that we have on a regular basis.
Thank you. And Niki, then for you to think of the community advisory panel, were you surprised that they were so supportive of conserving water and rewarding that through the rate setting?
No, I wasn't surprised. We've had a long history in our community where they've expressed values on sustainability and conservation. And so we have a really aggressive conservation program. And it was really a balance and a lot of discussion around affordability and still incentivizing those sustainability efforts.
And by conserving water, does that have, an effect of being able to, postpone or delay some major capital projects and then, keeping current rates down because the demand hasn't increased as much?
Yeah, we initially had projected that we would need our long-term water supply on by 2016, and we came close to hitting our capacity at our treatment plant the year before that. However, we were able to do a smaller expansion and defer the long-term water supply project approximately 10 years due to the conservation efforts within our community. And that really helps spread the costs over time so the burden isn't so high in a short period on our customers.
So by deferring it, we've grown, we have a larger community, a larger industrial base, and so it is borne by more account holders than it would have had we had to do it before.
Yes, it definitely helps defer those projects. Conservation is what we consider a critical part of our supply portfolio. So it's something that we maintain and continue to put incentives out for our community across all of our customer categories.
So we know that coming up in November of 24, there's an advisory vote on the ballot. Is that anything that the community advisory panel for the water rates, addressed, was fluoridation of water?
The community advisory panel focused solely on the residential rate structure for single family and multifamily, and we did not discuss the issue of fluoridation at the panel. Okay,
and that makes sense. So, when community gives input and pays the bill, when they say, oh, it's too high, you listen to this perspective, because we know that our cable rates are going up, our electric rates, our natural gas, and all of our utility rates. And so how do we balance, making sure that we are able to adequately fund, this huge system, of water, and at the same time making sure that we're sensitive to inflationary rates and tightened budgets that we all experience, month to month.
Yeah, inflation is hitting utilities and our customers really hard. We heard that pretty loud and clear through our outreach process. We still have to balance the ability to serve our customers 24/7. People always want to have that water coming out of their tap. When new employees start in our department or we have a community advisory panel or focus group, I always hear, I didn't know how much went into delivering water to my tap. And we have regulations we have to meet through the Safe Drinking Water Act and replacement of infrastructure so that water is always there. And so for us, it's just looking at the impacts to our community, taking the input from community advisory panels and different individual members and customers, and then we're able to spread some projects out over time and prioritize those based on replacement and regulations.
Very good. Thank you. So in closing, you hear from customers about the costs, but I hear from so many folks who are proud to live in Hillsboro, and they recognize just the water supply and delivery, are a huge advantage, to living here. And so I want to say thank you to you for all of that. Thank you to your service for our community. Thank you especially for being a voice, to those who struggle, because for some people, that $3 a month increase doesn't pinch, okay? But for others, it absolutely does. For our seniors, for single parents. So thank you very much. And, thanks for making sure when we're out and about at farmers market, at our festivals, we always have our hometown tap, giving us good fresh water. And so we just appreciate your service in your different ways. And thank you very much. And thank you for joining us on this month's edition of Community Conversations. We look forward to seeing you soon. And in the meantime, take care.